mighty bur oak. Well, we've got a red oak here. Sorry. Yeah, red oak. Oh, that's a Virginia bluebell.
Aren't those gorgeous? Oh my. Look at the white trillium right in front of it.
Yeah,
Chad.
white trillium. You can see all those little pink flowers. Those are all spring beauties.
Look how they're going across the path. All this stuff is going down on its own.
Now that's anemones, and that's wild ginger.
Big patch of it.
Yeah.
And all these mayaples didn't used to be here. They've just
mayaples. Yeah. So all of these plants started out from Howard's Woods in Indiana, Judy's old farm place, and we started in 2014, and we started bringing plants once a year in the early mid-spring, and we did that for about 8 years, and we would just plant one clump of flowers, and then over the years, and it spread, and then next year it spread a little more, and it kept spreading like that, and now 10 years later we have this beautiful field of wildflowers.
This area right here is getting close to looking like Dad's woods, where you can hardly walk without stepping on a flower.
Yeah. Now, and that's the first spring wildflower to bloom on Trillium Trail, and they bloom in end of March, early April, and so the flowers are all gone.
Well, there's one right in there.
Oh,
there, right there.
Okay, there.
Oh, some of the petals
Yeah,
are
he's
even off.
he's not in very good shape. So it's done blooming, and the leaves are just getting bigger and bigger. They're trying to get as much sunlight as they can and send more energy back down in the roots, and so that's why the leaves started out about this big and now they're that big. That's called celandine or celandine, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, poppies. And they're native plants, and that came from way down by the road. There's a big patch of it, and so I planted 8 patches of it in our Trillium Trail, and I think maybe 4 of them took, I think. But they're just opening up now, so we may find more. Here's a beautiful red patch of red trilliums, and that probably started out as 1 or 2, and look how over the years now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's about a dozen plants that have popped up in the same spot over the years.
And it's beyond the peak.
Yeah. All right. We're going to continue on Trillium Trail. It's so beautiful now after it just being a big bunch of honeysuckle, and now it's this beautiful nature trail. And the other day I made a list of the number of wildflowers that are in on Trillium Trail. 31 species of wildflowers in here.
See all that Solomon seal starting to pop up here?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but those little shoots coming up. Yeah, right. There you
All that is going to take over when these are all done. That takes over, and it'll just be like a sea of green, you know,
Green and white.
reaching down this way like waves of green.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like a waterfall. They'll all be hanging downhill too. It's just really cool. Here's a plant that we don't know how it came here. It's all done. These are all seed pods now. It was real pretty pink flowers, and it's called bitter cress. We don't know where that came from. We don't know if somebody gave it to us, and nobody knew what it was for a long time. We found out it's called limestone bitter cress. Oh, that's called blue cohosh. It has yellow flowers, and then there'll be blue berries in the fall, and that's from Howard's Woods. Oh, I should say too, when once the honeysuckle was removed, it allowed sunlight to reached the forest floor, and that's when things started to grow. So with the honeysuckle gone, the one plant that did exist here, the false Solomon seal, started to grow, and that's why we've got so much of it. Oh, here's another. This is kind of cool. That's called bristly buttercup, and I'm not sure where that came from because I don't remember seeing that in Howard's Woods, but there's a whole bunch of it further down the trail here. And it's surrounded by spring beauties and the violets.
All this mixture here is just what you see all over Dad's Woods. Spring beauties, violets, blue and yellow.
Is this cool, Chad, or what?
Yeah.
And over there's some blue phlox.
Oh yeah, blue phlox up there. This is a native wildflower. And that's from Indiana in Howard's Woods also.
Can't swing a dead cat around here without hitting a wildflower.
Here, this is Virginia waterleaf. It hasn't. It looks like there's water on the leaf, and it's just light spots on the leaf. But that's why they call it Virginia waterleaf. It has a kind of a pinkish white flower, but it's not blooming yet.
Huh?
This plant right here is called toothwort because the wort, I think, is Latin for plant, and this, because of the teeth on the leaves, they call this toothwort. And it did have some cute little white flowers, but they're going to seed now too, because this is one of the earlier plants.
I don't think there are any more left.
Nope, they're all going to seeds. And then the seeds kind of fall downhill, and I think that's partly why things are moving down, is because of gravity. It's really cool.
It's the other nice clump of.
That's the bellwort. That's really pretty. It's a little bit past peak, but it's
Still looks pretty good.
yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, okay.
This was probably one clump of blood root.
Yeah.
Look at how that's.
Yeah, it was probably one shovelful. And look at it now. Oh, it's just, this is just so
There's a
beautiful.
white trillium all by itself.
Oh, yeah.
So it started.
Yeah, so every now and then
Seeds
we'll
just-
point out some plants that I didn't plant them, Judy didn't plant them, but there's a white trillium out there.
There's one up there, and here's one right here all by
Yeah,
itself.
little guy that just seeded itself from an old white trillium plant.
Are these all work?
I think it's twice as many as there were before. This was all honeysuckle right here. You could barely see the mayapple. So once I removed all the honeysuckle, they're kind of spreading a little bit. And then we did bring from Howard's Woods the blue cohosh and the red trillium. I forget where we got the bluebells. And along with that came some spring beauties and some bloodroot there. And here's a volunteer white trillium coming up.
And my ferns are starting to come up right here. Those are cool the way they roll out,
Yep.
unfurl.
Yeah, those are really,
Yeah,
really cool.
I love to watch
Yeah.
ferns open up.
They'll get to be about 2 feet tall, actually. And then this little guy right here is called wild leek. It's some kind of a wild onion. And that's one of the very first things that pops up in the spring. But I never see a flower on it, so.
Ta-da!
This plant, this is called toadshade. And in the Peterson wildflower book that I've had for 50 years, on the same page as the white trillium was this picture of this plant called toadshade. And for 50 years, I never saw a toadshade. I didn't even know that I didn't even think it was real, because I just thought, I've never seen one of these. And it's on the same page in the book as the white trillium. And then one day, probably 2 years or 3 years after we'd lived here, I'm down by the pavilion and I see a clump of toadshade. The first one I'd ever seen was in our yard. And so I showed the grandkids, and then one day we're picking garlic mustard, and we're down here actually out. Josh was just over here, you know, by that brush pile, and he yells, "Hey Boompa, I found some more toadshade." And I'm thinking, oh, come on, that can't be. I go over there, there's another clump of toadshade. So I transplanted it up by the oak tree up here, and it's just, I've seen two of them in my life, and they were both in our yard.
And I found the toad in Madison because he wanted to move to a country setting where he could sit under the toad shade.
And Chad, you might show this. This is what, again, what Trillium Trail looked like. It was just all honeysuckle. And the difference just blows my mind how beautiful it is now.
And see those big variegated?
Yeah.
Those are a lot bigger than the others that will.
That's the variegated
Yeah.
Solomon
True
seal.
Solomon seal.
True Solomon seal, right.
This might be an example of what came from Indiana because you got you maybe dug out one plant like the cohosh here,
Yeah.
and maybe the red trillium was sitting next to it, and then you get spring beauties along with it, and here's an anemone. So there's 4 things right there.
Yeah. Nice.
I'll zoom in on that one.
That is
that's
peaked
about as
right now.
beautiful as they come.
That is beautiful. Wow. When the bloodroot was blooming, the forest floor was pretty much brown. It was just dead leaves, and the only thing that popped up maybe was a few of those leeks, wild leeks. But the bloodroot, you could stand up there and just look down and see, you know, 10 patches here and there of white flowers. It was so beautiful with the brown leaves as a background, and now it looks like that.
All right. Isn't this a nice patch of rue anemone?
Yes.
There's 2 kinds of anemones out here. This one is rue anemone because the leaves are more oval.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's one over there. Yes, those 2 over there. Now look at this one.
That's a Jacob's ladder.
It hasn't bloomed yet. Look at the
Yeah, it has
little
blue flowers.
buds.
Probably in another week or so. that'll be
Yeah, it's a
blooming.
late.
Yeah.
What she did the other day, remember?
And this is called sharp-lobed hepatica, and it's beautiful, beautiful pink flowers. And again, that would be one of the first ones to bloom in the spring, but it hardly ever blooms. It's all we ever get is a pile of leaves. But the in Howard's Woods, I can remember seeing a clump that was about this big of pink flowers. That was that hepatica, and it was one of the most beautiful clusters of flowers I've ever seen in my life. And that guy could do that, but he
doesn't. Just like our sport.
yeah, it just doesn't. These are 2 little garlic mustard plants, and this is an invasive weed that's taking over all over the Midwest. And when we first moved here, our yard was full of this, and we had our whole family come over, the Colliers, and
10 years in a row, basically.
yeah, and we pulled garlic mustard all day Saturday. And the first year we had 34 30-gallon bags of this. Usually, when it's full grown, it's this tall. And it would just be patches, just solid patches of it. And the next year we had 28 bags, and the next year it was like 22, and we got down to the point where one year we were down to like a half a bag.
So this is squirrel corn, and it's kind of spread all around here. There's some there, but we have not gotten it to bloom yet. It gets a little, looks like a little piece of corn hanging from the top. Kind of like Dutchman's breeches. The leaves are just like Dutchman's breeches, but this is called squirrel corn. Okay, here's Mr.
So there's the Jack in the Pulpit.
Mr. Jack
right there.
in the Pulpit.
That
Right there.
we have probably 6 or 8.
He's one of the littler ones. We
Yeah.
have a lot of big ones.
Yeah.
The guy
Yeah,
inside
if I
there?
do this, Jack.
Yeah.
There.
Okay, good. Okay,
So-
I think that's it.
So this kind of concludes our tour of Trillium Trail on May 1st, 2024. Thanks for filming this, Chad.
Yeah,
It's great.
sure.
Found another garlic mustard.
Yeah, we got
Yuck.
Two of them.
yeah. Thanks for watching.
Did you have fun?